Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I stand before you to share a message that has the potential to change the way you view your struggles, your pain, and even the distance you feel from your dreams. We all go through times in life when we feel as though we are far from where we want to be. The distance between where we are now and where we desire to be can seem impossible to overcome. Some of us feel physically distant from loved ones, emotionally distant from joy, and spiritually distant from God. There are moments when we are ready to give up, to let go of our dreams and hopes because we don't see the way forward. Distance fosters growth. When we are faced with challenges or find ourselves in situations that seem far from what we desire, it forces us to step outside of our comfort zones. It is in these moments that we are pushed to discover strengths and abilities within ourselves that we may not have realized before. Growth does not come from comfort. It doesn't emerge from the places where everything is easy, familiar, and within reach. Instead, growth arises when we are in unfamiliar territory, where the challenges are real and the stakes are high. This is where we learn the most about who we truly are. Consider the times in your life when you face difficulty. Those moments when you've had to push through something that felt overwhelming, when you were uncertain of the outcome but chose to continue anyway. During these times, you were not just surviving, you were evolving. Each step you took, each decision you made, helped you become a stronger, wiser person. Without those challenges, you might have remained stagnant, never discovering the depths of your own potential. Distance doesn't only refer to physical separation, but can also be emotional or spiritual. When we are emotionally distant from the people around us, when we face trials that seem to isolate us, it is easy to feel defeated. However, it is precisely during these times of emotional distance that we can grow the most. When our connections with others feel strained or broken, it forces us to turn inward and assess our own strength, resilience, and self-worth. We begin to learn more about our capacity for empathy, patience, and understanding. We discover new ways to approach our relationships, to communicate, and to love. Spiritual distance, too, can lead to growth. Sometimes we go through periods when we feel disconnected from God, when it feels as though our prayers are unanswered or our faith is wavering. During such times, we may feel alone and distant from the divine presence we once felt so close to. But it is during these seasons that we are often challenged to deepen our faith, to seek God more earnestly, and to trust Him even when we don't see or feel His presence. This search for meaning, this desire to understand our place in the greater picture, leads to spiritual maturation. We are forced to look beyond the surface, beyond the immediate and obvious, and find a deeper, more enduring connection. In every aspect of life, distance requires us to confront things we might otherwise avoid. It brings out qualities in us that we might not have been aware of, and it teaches us how to adapt, evolve, and persevere. It teaches us how to overcome, how to turn weakness into strength, and how to find resilience even when we feel at our lowest. Without the distance, we might never realize the potential within us to rise above challenges, to meet difficulties head-on, and to grow from them. Distance is not an obstacle to our growth, it is the very condition that enables us to evolve. It is the force that drives us forward, challenges our limits, and forces us to break free from the comfort of the known. God uses distance for transformation. It is often in the times when we feel the farthest from our goals, our purpose, or even from God that we experience the deepest transformations. Distance, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, has a way of separating us from the comfort of the familiar and pushing us into spaces where change becomes not only possible but inevitable. In these moments of separation, we are given the opportunity to refine our character, strengthen our faith, and rediscover our true purpose in life. When we are in close proximity to our desires or to what we think we need, we can become complacent. The urgency to grow or change diminishes when we are surrounded by the things that make us feel safe and secure. But when there is distance, when something feels out of reach, or when we experience separation, it creates a longing within us, a longing to find the way back or to bridge the gap. That longing sparks a deeper drive to understand ourselves and the world around us in new ways. It forces us to look inward, to evaluate who we truly are and who we are becoming. Consider the story of Abraham in the Bible. God asked him to leave his homeland and his family to journey to an unknown place, a place that would become the land of promise. That journey wasn't easy. It was full of uncertainty, challenges, and loneliness. But it was also the place where Abraham's faith was tested and refined. The distance between where he started and where he was called to go wasn't just physical, it was spiritual as well. The distance he traveled was not only a test of endurance, but also a test of trust in God's promises. Over time, Abraham's faith grew stronger. The distance between him and his promise became the very space in which God molded him into the man he intended him to be. The transformation that took place in Abraham's heart and mind during that time shaped the course of his entire life, and through him, the destiny of a nation was altered. The same is true for us. When we face moments of separation or distance from what we desire, it is not a sign that we are being abandoned. Rather, it is an opportunity for God to transform us. Transformation doesn't happen when everything is comfortable and familiar. It happens when we are forced to adapt, when we must face our weaknesses and confront our fears. It happens when we are pushed beyond our limitations and have no choice but to trust in something greater than ourselves. This is where God does His deepest work in us. There are times when the distance we experience is emotional or relational. When we feel distant from loved ones or from the support system we once relied upon, it can be painful. But it is during these times of emotional distance that we learn more about our own capacity for love, forgiveness, and growth. When a relationship is strained, it forces us to reflect on our own actions, to seek healing within ourselves before we can seek it with others. It may be in these difficult moments that we realize how much we have to offer and how much we need to change in order to be the kind of person we want to become. Distance can also be spiritual. There are seasons in life when we feel distant from God, when our prayers feel unanswered and our faith seems to falter. During these times, we might question our connection to the divine or wonder why God seems silent. But it is in these very moments that God is often at work, shaping us for something greater. Spiritual distance challenges us to persevere, to press into our faith even when it feels hard. It calls us to remember that God's plans are bigger than what we can see in the moment and that His timing is perfect. The distance we feel can be the soil in which our faith grows deeper, more resilient, and more enduring. Through the distance, we are being transformed into the people we were meant to be. Transformation doesn't come without discomfort. It doesn't come without struggle. But in the midst of the distance, God is refining us, purifying us, and preparing us for the future He has planned for us. The very distance that feels painful and isolating is the same distance that is molding us into vessels capable of carrying greater purpose and meaning. What may seem like a separation from what we desire is, in fact, a divine process of becoming who we are meant to be. Distance creates a longing for purpose. When we find ourselves far from where we want to be, whether in terms of our dreams, our goals, or our deeper sense of meaning, we are naturally led to a place of yearning. That sense of longing is not just a feeling of emptiness, it is a powerful catalyst for us to seek the very thing we feel is missing. It is in these times of distance that we are awakened to the fact that we were made for something more. This longing becomes the driving force that pushes us forward, urging us to bridge the gap between where we are and where we know we are meant to be. There is something deeply profound about the gap between where we currently stand and the place we desire to reach. This distance, whether emotional, physical, or spiritual, often stirs within us a hunger for purpose, a desire to connect with something greater than ourselves. It makes us aware of the fact that we are not content to merely exist, but that we want to live with meaning and intention. The space between what we have and what we want forces us to ask questions about our purpose, our worth, and our calling. It compels us to examine what truly matters to us and pushes us to seek out answers in ways we might never have considered if we were comfortable or content. Think about the times when you've been stuck in a season of waiting, when you felt disconnected from your true purpose. During these moments of waiting or distance, the sense of longing is particularly intense. You may have asked yourself, what is my purpose? Or why do I feel so far from the life I imagine? This feeling of being distanced from your dreams or your goals can be frustrating and even painful. Yet, in the midst of that pain, there is also an opportunity to realign yourself with your deeper sense of purpose. It is in that longing that you begin to recognize the things that truly matter. The gap between where you are and where you want to be becomes the space where your heart can grow clearer about what you were truly meant to do. When we feel distant from our dreams, it is easy to become disheartened. But that distance serves as an invitation to reassess. It prompts us to reflect on the direction we're headed, the choices we've made, and the steps we need to take in order to move closer to our purpose. Instead of resigning ourselves to frustration, we can use this time to recalibrate, to make changes in our lives, and to focus our energy on pursuing what we truly care about. The longing that comes with distance becomes an opportunity for reflection and action. The yearning that distance creates is not just about wishing for something better or wanting to close the gap between where we are and where we want to be. It is about discovering what we are truly called to, what brings us fulfillment, and what aligns with our deepest values. Distance reveals our heart's desires, sometimes in ways we hadn't previously understood. It shows us the areas of our lives where we have room to grow, to expand, and to deepen our commitment to the things that matter most. This longing for purpose also invites us to trust. It invites us to trust that the distance we feel is not permanent, but a temporary phase on the way to something greater. When we feel far from our dreams, it is easy to doubt that we will ever reach them. But the longing itself is a sign that we are being drawn towards something bigger than ourselves, something that has the potential to bring fulfillment and meaning. The gap between our present and our future can feel daunting, but it is also a space of hope. A place where we learn to believe that our dreams are worth the effort it takes to bridge the distance. This longing becomes the fuel for perseverance. When you feel the distance between where you are and where you want to be, you are being challenged to press on, to continue moving forward even when it feels difficult or uncertain. The longing for purpose doesn't let us settle. It keeps us striving, keeps us moving toward the future we desire, reminding us that we were not created to live aimlessly, but to fulfill a greater calling. It is in the yearning, in the distance, that we are constantly reminded of the purpose that awaits us. God is present in the distance. It is often in the times when we feel the farthest from Him, when we are separated from what we believe we need, that God is actually closest to us. Distance, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, does not signify God's absence. Rather, it serves as an opportunity for Him to work in ways that we might not immediately understand. In moments of separation or when we feel isolated, God is present, refining us, guiding us, and preparing us for something greater than we could have imagined. The distance is not a sign of His departure, but a space in which He works most deeply in our lives. When we go through times of spiritual distance, when we feel as though God is far away, it is easy to question His presence. We may ask, where is God in my pain? Where is He in this season of struggle? It's in those moments that we need to remember that God does His greatest work in the spaces where we feel the most distant. While we may feel separated, God is still actively working behind the scenes, shaping our hearts and minds, and preparing us for the next chapter in our journey. The silence we experience is not a sign of His abandonment, but a call to deepen our trust, to learn to lean on Him in ways we haven't before. Consider the story of Jesus on the cross. In His most agonizing moment, when He felt the full weight of sin and separation from the Father, He cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus, in His humanity, felt the distance between Himself and the Father more intensely than ever before. Yet, in that very moment of perceived abandonment, He was fulfilling the ultimate purpose for which He came to reconcile humanity to God. What seemed like distance was in fact the most profound act of love and connection the world has ever known. Jesus' separation from the Father was the bridge that restored all of humanity to God. Even in the distance, God was present, working his divine plan. In our own lives, the times when we feel the farthest from God can often be the times when he is closest to us. Distance forces us to rely on him more fully, to trust that he is working for our good, even when we can't see the full picture. It challenges us to let go of our own understanding and surrender to his perfect timing. When everything around us seems uncertain, we are invited to hold on to our faith, to believe that God is present even when it feels like he is not. Emotional distance can also create space for God to work. When relationships are strained, when we feel lonely or disconnected, we may wonder why God allows these feelings of separation. But it is often in those moments of emotional distance that God draws us closer to himself. He uses these seasons to help us grow in our emotional maturity, to strengthen our capacity for empathy and understanding. As we go through these trials, God teaches us how to love more deeply, how to forgive more freely, and how to rely on him for the strength we need to heal. What may seem like a painful distance is actually God's way of helping us develop the resilience and character necessary to navigate life's challenges. In our lives, God uses distance to deepen our relationship with him. When everything is easy and close, it can be easy to forget our dependence on God. But in times of separation, we are reminded of our need for him. We are forced to seek him more earnestly, to trust in his promises even when we don't feel his immediate presence. And in those moments, God works powerfully within us. He draws us closer to him, not by eliminating the distance, but by inviting us to meet him in the very space where we feel separated. Through this process, we become more aware of his presence and his love, not just in the times when we feel close to him, but in the moments when we feel far away. God does not abandon us when we feel distant. Instead, he uses those times to refine us, to shape us into the people he has called us to be. It is in the distance that he molds our character, strengthens our faith, and prepares us for the future he has in store for us. The distance is not a sign that God is absent, but an opportunity for him to work in ways we might not fully understand in the moment. Through every season of separation, God is present, guiding us toward the fullness of his plan. Thanks for watching.